Well, hello, guys. You caught me laughing, or I caught myself laughing here at something Clay just said. Hi, guys. Welcome to the show. Hi, Clay. How are you tonight?
I'm good. And for those of you that are wondering what I just talked about, the idea of Elsa Kurt, the bearded woman from the circus of the past, was what was being discussed. And we both agreed that that is a terrible idea.
Yes, we did. We did. I take the blame for starting the silliness. I just before I hit the start button here on this, I said, hang on, I got to make sure I don't have like lipstick on my teeth or anything. And Clay said, he's like, yeah, beard, no worries. Don't have to worry about any of that stuff. And I suggested maybe I should try it. And we both agreed. Like you said, that is a no. That is a no. You don't have to worry about that kind of nonsense going on over here. Oh, guys, we have a great show for you. No surprise there, of course, right? I know you're all thinking no surprise. So we are going to get right to it right after this. So we've got some great topics here. Lots of stuff, as always, going on in the world. So much of it is serious. Some of it is semi-silly. I mean, I wouldn't call it silly because it has massive impact on everything, but it's definitely wild. So let's start off with this one. Let's talk about the GOP shuffle. I think you coined that when we were tossing back and forth ideas. You coined it. I think I liked it. So I'm like, yeah, we're gonna call it the GOP shuffle. Obviously, or maybe not obviously, we're talking about Ronna McDaniel out as RNC chair. She is done as of what is it, the 8th? I think she's like officially out on the 8th. Is that right?
Yeah, she basically gave her 2-week notice and said, I'm out. There's her, she is the RNC chair, but there's also I think it's there's 3 Republican House members who are committee members, not just your run-of-the-mill, House members, but some committee members, high influence committee members who are also choosing to not run for re-election. So in a presidential election year, you've got the RNC chair and some, influential folks within the party who are choosing to step away. To me, Elsa, and I'll be interested in, what you think, but that's an indicator of the, division within the party, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's the first thing. But is there a deeper problem, do you think, than just, hey, we think things are going in different directions, or is there something bigger than that? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, so I don't know either. I do think the party has some significant issues. I mean, a serious identity crisis, I think, with that, because of that division. You have your old school, and I don't even know if they're old school. I don't even know if that's even fair to say. You have your, people call them rhinos. And, I don't know enough to know if that's fair to say, but that certainly seems to be this dividing line. You're either a rhino or you're like a grassroots or a Republican. And it's usually the younger ones that have all this spitfire and it's a problem overall because we can't be a divided front. We just can't be. And that's exactly what we are. So, whatever the cause, whoever's right, whoever's wrong, it's a bad look. It's just really bad optics, and it's bad for getting anything done.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. It's not as clear. I think it probably is about an 80 to 85, maybe 90%, like Trump Republican, non-Trump Republican divide, right? So you've got the MAGA crowd and then the non-MAGA crowd, whatever you want to call it, Trump supporters versus the non. But I think there's some bleed over there too. I think there are some Trump supporters who are just not kind of in line with the way things are going. I don't know if it's, I think some of the younger ones or some of the ones that are choosing not to run again are just tired of the crap that goes on in the House.
Sure.
I think, the bureau, they are elected government officials, and bureaucracy is the name of the game. But I think they're even
Yes.
getting tired of that, of the, the slow moving, progression, and not progressive, but progression. There's no progress being
Yes.
made. And
Right.
I think it's wearing on people. I think it's wearing on even the elected officials who are there. So
Yeah, you got to imagine that you're going in, whether, I'm saying, when I say young, I don't necessarily mean age-wise young. I mean, new and fresh coming into the political, game, essentially. And you have these great ideas and you have all this energy, and you know in your heart and intellectually how things should be going. And you hit brick walls everywhere you turn. So I agree. I think it's very disillusioning and incredibly frustrating. And the payoff for all of this blood, sweat, and tears that you put in, it's not worth it. It becomes not worth it. And I think you're probably right. I think that is certainly plays a factor in the walk away, essentially.
yeah, and so what I think is interesting too is that we always talk about on the blue side of the aisle, the squad, which is like its own little, organization wing of the Democratic Party. It's, ultra crazy, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, there's like a self-contained clique.
Yes.
You don't see anything like that, at least not that I've seen or that I'm aware of within the
Right.
Republican Party. So where you've got that crowd within the Democratic Party, and we all know that crowd says some pretty outlandish, outrageous, bordering on stupid things that come out of their mouths,
Yes.
and they all cheer each other on, right? So, you can go back and look at their voting records, and every one of them, their voting record is atrocious. Like the things that they put forward and the things that they vote for never pass. Right. But they all kind of, pull each other up and cheer each other on, and they stand behind each other.
Yeah.
So, which is why none of them leave. Like nobody from the squad has been, not reelected. None of them have quit. None of them have walked away yet. But on the Republican side, you don't seem to have that camaraderie, even in the younger, great explanation, by the way, younger, newer Republicans. They're newer politicians that are at the federal level. So there's no support structure, it seems, at least to the outside eye, where they are kind of propping each other up and taking care of each other and, that kind of thing. I mean, you do have guys like Dan Crenshaw, and I know I talk about him quite, somewhat often on here, but he is very, he's pretty social media savvy. He does, he gets out there, he puts his name and his voice out there a lot, but he's also standing by himself most of the time. Like, I don't see him with his arm around 2 or 3 or 4 other Republicans palling around together like the squad does. So while he's a strong individual and a strong personality, I don't see him dragging anybody forward with him, to kind of keep things moving forward. They all seem to be on their own path and their own trajectory. And the only thing they have in common is the R, right?
Yeah. That's actually a really good observation. I had not even thought of that. And that's really, really true. Do you think it is as simple as that? It's like there's this every man for himself mentality, that they're so busy trying to make a name for themselves and be the guy, that they can't get that united front the way that the squad has done? Because that's really a shame, because that probably is really great optics for the party to have that. If they're not doing stupid things, they can't be doing stupid things. That's, there's the catch.
Yeah, I think, the faces of the Republican Party haven't changed for very much like the Democrats. Don't get me wrong. I mean, both sides have some really old people that just need to go away, right? But the Mitt Romneys of the world, like that, those guys, those folks, the older crowd, I will say they do need to get out of the way. I'm a big fan of term limits. I think that the career politician thing is garbage. I think that shouldn't be allowed. But at the same time, I almost wonder if on the Republican side, there's this do I side on the MAGA side? Do I side on the traditional side? Where do I sit? I don't want to piss off too many people because, if Trump doesn't get back in office, then I still have to deal with all of the old heads. And so I think they're kind of in they're in a tough spot, but at the same time, you got to have a little bit of courage and a little bit of intestinal fortitude to kind of, strive through it and get on a committee and, vote your feeling or vote your constituency. Crazy idea. Right. But really, I find a battle buddy, in the halls somewhere,
right.
and stick with them and be like, hey, look, it's, me and you got elected together, or, and it's me and you for the next few, for this term, and then we'll figure it out again. But I'm with you and you're with me, and let's hook each other up and take care of each other. I just don't see that on the red side of the aisle. It's very there's a stark difference, I think, between the two.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's very true. And I think you're probably right that, a huge part of that is the Trump factor. Where do they want to stand on this, in the short term and the long term? Yeah. And the only thing that's, really consistently true, no matter what they do, people, we, the voters, we have long memories, and if you play that wishy-washy game, if you're right now saying never Trump until he gets elected, and then suddenly you love him, we're going to remember it, and we're going to pull up those clips and those tweets and those things. Or do they still call them tweets? We're calling them tweets. I don't know.
They do still call them tweets. Yeah,
right. It's never going to stop.
No, nope. But yeah, the internet is undefeated. That stuff never goes away. And yeah, you'll never live it down if you choose to be although, there is some forgiveness out there, right? I mean, there's talk of Ron DeSantis being the vice presidential candidate, right? Yeah. Who was as anti-Trump gets.
Right.
So, but again, it's almost like the blessing from the Pope. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past. If the big boss says, you're good, then you're good. But Nikki Haley has chosen to fight to the end.
Yeah.
I don't think she's going to make it through Super Tuesday.
I can't imagine. Didn't she just lose like her biggest donors?
She did. There's that. But, she's the one who is going to be the ultimate casualty in all of this because her career, especially if President Trump gets reelected, her political career is over with. Now, if he loses, there is potential for resurrection. She can come out like a phoenix and everything could be okay. But if he wins and she is not on board, and I know she's going to do the obligatory endorsement when she bows out, because she will. She'll bow out and then she'll endorse because she's on board with the party. But if she doesn't bow out gracefully and he gets elected, she's done. Right. Yeah. And all these young Congress people that we're talking about are watching this, and they're watching this all play out. And they know that if they're on the wrong side of this, when the music stops, they're going to be standing there without a chair. And that's what none of them want. Right. Because what does every first term politician want? A second term. So they're all paying attention. And I think right now they're all in a freeze, and they're not forming any alliances because they don't know which side to play.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it from both perspectives, on one hand, I could say, well, I totally get that. This is your career, this is your livelihood, this is your existence, and what you decide to do, that can be paralyzing, and I get that. But the flip side of that is kind of like I think you said, just stand on something, stand somewhere, don't stand on the line, pick a side, pick a spot, own it, and, get the respect for being firm in your decision. But we're talking about politicians. So that's such a silly statement when we're talking about politicians. They're,
with the exception, and we'll roll right into our next topic. Governor Abbott is that guy, right? We've been talking about him for weeks, potentially months. That guy has found his ground, and it's a little cliche to say Alamo because of Texas, but he is standing on the walls of his Alamo, and he is going to, he's going to die there because he is taking a stand. And what we're talking about, folks, is, the unfortunate impact of all of this non-border policy, massive influx of, illegal immigrants, and what happened to this poor young lady nursing student, Laken Riley, and what's happened in the last few days. And it's tragic.
It is absolutely gut-wrenching. This beautiful young girl, 22-year-old Georgia nursing student, murdered by an illegal immigrant. I hate to even use the word immigrant, but an illegal, and absolutely devastating, horrific story. And it only gets worse by the details, the facts of this, and it's not good. The optics for Joe Biden and his administration and his failing to secure our borders. This is, this right now is what everyone is focusing on, the fact that this guy, Jose Ibarra, he allegedly killed Laken Riley. He was here illegally, paroled into the country a year after he crossed the southern border. ICE says NYPD arrested him, and he was charged with acting in a manner to injure a child. Then he had a motor vehicle license violation, and then there were actually several other incidents. And of course, the key factor is that he was released before, anything of any consequence, well, before he could be sent back to where he came from, basically. So this is a direct portrayal of Biden's failings here to secure that border. And this is the things that are happening. And this isn't the first one, and it's not going to be the last one, because we don't know what is coming over the border. We don't know the type. Well, we do know the types of people based on this guy, and now maybe by the time of this recording, or by the time this airs on Thursday for you guys, maybe he has spoken about Laken Riley, but to the best of my knowledge, he hasn't even addressed it yet. Has that changed since my last look? I've been tied up all day.
Yeah. So there was a, our deepest condolences kind of thing from the president.
Okay.
That's it.
There's
it. Been no act, no statement, no anything related to addressing border policy or anything like that. It hasn't even been an attempt to blame President Trump, which, is the reflex action that I'm aware of. I do know there was the my condolences message that was sent out. And look, folks, I think you said 2020 he came across.
Yeah.
Right. So
2020.
There's
2020 or 21, one or the other.
Okay. So there's potential there that he came across during President Trump's tenure in the White House. And no, if that's the truth, I'm certainly not going to be one to hide it or massage the dates.
No.
But the reality is that we've had a border issue, right, for a number of years. There have been attempts, especially even by President Trump, to address it. The wall that we know was fought against and attempted and built in parts and pieces. And then as soon as President Biden came into office, he started tearing it down and selling off the raw materials for the wall. And the policies that have followed. And again, Governor Abbott has been the one who's brought tons of this or brought this to tons of people's attention, because he's made it affect more than just people who live on the southern border. And this is a policy issue when it comes to deportation, as well as crossing the border, right? It's not just a border policy. It's an immigration policy, specifically where it relates to this guy, because he did come in illegally. He was caught, and then he was paroled into the country. So that certainly happened while President Biden was in office. Right. I just
looked it up. So, okay. So here's what I have. Jose Ibarra, 26-year-old citizen of Venezuela, was arrested in the U.S. Customs and Border Protection on September 8th, 2022, after unlawfully entering the United States near El Paso.
Definitely within the President Biden administration. Okay. So 2022. Right. So arrested across the border, paroled into the United States instead of deported. Crimes in New York, right? Intent to harm a child, right? There was you said there was I said I saw something too. It was one of those very obscure, nondescript kind of vehicular, violations of some sort. And again, and again, released, charged and
Released.
released, right? And then what does he
Right.
do? He flees the state of New York because he's got no residency. So he
Right.
flees the state of New York and he's down in Georgia. And then unfortunately, Laken Riley, beautiful young lady, goes out for a jog in the morning. And this guy, pardon my mouth, this piece of shit attacks her and kills her. Right. And as the charges continue to pile up on this guy, the one I saw today was that he evidently it was so violent that he deformed her skull. And I don't know if that was in an attempt to conceal evidence, conceal her identity or what, but evidently it was a pretty horrific scene. And all condolences and sympathies go out to her family. I know that doesn't fix anything, and I know that sounds hollow, but you know, it gets worse. It's like you said, every time you look at this thing, every time there's a new headline, it's worse.
Yes.
And this is the direct result. Like you said that, right? This is the direct result.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no other way to view it, I don't think. You know, I mean, if people were not coming over undocumented, unchecked in any possible way, flooding into the country, if they were, you know, I mean, it isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody comes into this country and if they're here, you know, and it's not like they're even here on asylum or anything like that, or they're just coming on over because they can. So now you get arrested. We find out that, you know, and you know, nobody more than me hates to knock law enforcement, police departments. You know, I'm assuming their hands were tied, that there was nothing that they could do. They maybe couldn't hold them. I don't really know. I guess because of how our justice system is set up right now, that they just get released. So shouldn't like the proper course of action be, you committed a crime, you're not here legally, you're out, you're gone. Here's an escort, kick you across the line, go. I don't understand why that's not happening when they commit a crime.
And they are. It's a crime. It is a crime to come here illegally. No question about it. The current policy is that we're not prosecuting that. And, you know, this is one of those where, and I read this today, and it was actually something unfortunately related to child trafficking, but the Border Patrol right now has become, they're not doing a whole lot of law enforcement because they're processing people, and they're acting as counselors, and they're acting as all kinds of things except for law enforcement because of the current policy. There's not enough room to hold people anymore. They've run out of space. So it's catch and release, catch, process, take information, release on your recognizance, and they let them go because they don't have anywhere to put them. And there's not, you know, I think the same article said there have been the equivalent of 36 states' population come into the United States this year. If you took the bottom 36, states in total population and added them up, that's how many illegal aliens have come into the United States this year. 36 states, 7 point something million people, right?
Wow.
And so what do you do with them? Right. And I understand where you're at. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. But this has gotten to the point where we can't even afford to send people home. In fact, Venezuela has says, don't send them because we're not taking them.
Wow.
They say we're not taking people back. Not our problem. They left. They're going to the United States problem. Don't send them back here. We're not going to allow them back in. So there's a lot going on here that, you know, like you said, we're not bashing law enforcement. Their hands are tied. They're overwhelmed. They're overworked. They're underpaid. They're not given any of the resources that they need. And the policy sucks because now we're at a point where you can't even do anything. You can't manage the mass. It just doesn't work.
No, yeah. I think of that job right now in places like New York City and any of our cities that are getting overrun with, these illegals. And you have the population that you're supposed to be policing. You have your district, you have your region that you're policing, and it's based on the number of people versus the number of officers. You know, all of these ratios have been predetermined essentially, and now, and you're probably already working on you know, lesser staffing because of all of the other policies related to policing.
Yeah.
And now you're saying, here's countless more people for you to police. And by the way, as you police them, you can't actually do anything. It is so maddening and frustrating and awful. It's just insane to me. And this administration, this is their legacy right here. What they've done to this country, just on that alone, this is the legacy of this administration, and it will be looked on in history just negatively, to say the least. That is probably the understatement of the year, but this will not reflect well for them ever.
This and it is unfortunately the innocents that are paying the price, including, you know, Lakin, and paying it in a very different way. You know, because she's born and raised U.S. citizen, all American girl, you know, going to school to be a nurse at UGA. She goes out for a drink in the morning, and then this happens. Right? Horrific for her, her family, for the UGA, right? Think about what it does to that entire college, the nursing school specifically within that college. Like, you're going to see an impact, because who now is going to send their 18-year-old daughter right out of high school to go to UGA, let alone the UGA nursing school?
Right.
Nobody. Nobody in their right mind in the next, you know, probably 24 months is gonna look at that one and go, yep, that's my number one choice. That's where I want to go, or that's where I'm going to allow my daughter to go. So there's that impact. And that article I was reading today talking about the impact of kids, and this is gut-wrenching to me. So the new technique for trafficking kids for labor, right? Sweatshop kind of stuff, but also sex trafficking kids. And this is where Border Patrol kind of is running out of time and assets, is they're literally taking these kids, writing a name and a phone number in Sharpie marker on these kids, and they're sending them across the border. Border Patrol catches them, and the kid says, you know, and they call the number that's on the kid's arm, and they say, do you know who this kid is? Yeah, we know that kid. He's so-and-so and so-and-so. Okay, well, we're going to release him to you, because what else are they going to do with him?
Right.
And then it turns out that these kids are going to work in sweatshops. They're being sex trafficked. They're being all kinds of things. And it's as simple as a damn Sharpie marker.
Right.
Well, what's Border Patrol supposed to do?
Yeah.
I mean, really, you know? So,
and I know a lot of people, you know, are sitting and watching not only our show talking about this, but, you know, the news in general, and feeling like, well, you know, we're all so angry and disgusted and horrified. And by the way, we only know a fraction of what's happening, and we're so far removed from what's really happening. Stories like that, you know, unfortunately, for most of us, it's just a story. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't impact you personally, but for those that it does impact personally and does affect that deeply, and who are, you know, saying, well, what do we do? How come, you know, how do we stop? How do we make this stop? And you know, that frustration and really rage towards this administration for not protecting these children, these people like Lakin Riley, you know, 22 years old. She's just a child. You know, that's horrendous. And now you're also talking about literal actual children. You know, there's a point that we've long passed where enough was enough. And it's very frustrating, because I think we sit here and go, well, how do we, like, you know, shake them into action here? It's maddening.
Yeah. And this is about retention of power, because it's about stacking votes. There's no bones about it. You'll never convince me otherwise. In fact, there are many Democrats out there who've said it flat out, that this is about, you know, changing demographics, adding votes, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what this is. This is, they have hedged, you know, the crowd, the demographics that they used to cater to, that they used to target, have been traditionally, in the last 40, 50 years, African Americans and women, right?
Right.
And now they've looked at this. They said, those populations, suburban women, truthfully, are like the big target. Those populations are actually starting to be overcome, and they're starting to drop in some cases, but they're starting to be overcome by Hispanics, Latin America,
Yes.
and so now they're adding to that, right? And that's what all of this is about. This is about adding a whole new demographic who they're going to pay, they're going to give money to, they're going to allow to come into the country, they're going to give them a place to live, and they're going to make sure they have the ability to vote so that they can retain the Democrats, this administration and the Democrats can retain power. They're stuffing ballot boxes by allowing these people to come into the country. This is not give me your tired, huddled masses, but that's not what this is. This is all about
this
power,
is give us your votes. Right. For anyone to try and argue that, quite frankly, I would say that they're a raging idiot, because I'm not pulling any punches, Clay. You're a raging idiot if you think it's anything else. If you think it's this humanitarian effort to, help these poor people who are just trying to get a better life, bullshit. And you're an idiot. So I'm calling it what it is, and be mad. Tell me you hate me. I don't freaking care. Simple as that. Not when you have, beautiful children like Lake and Riley and so many others that have made the news, and all the ones that have not made the news. Because believe me, there's a lot more going on that the media is not, you see it all the time. Something huge happens, a mass shooting or an attempted mass shooting, anything along those lines. And the minute it doesn't fit their narrative, that story's done. You don't hear anything more about it. And there's a few of them that, I could point to as reference for that. But if you don't know that that's the truth, then you're not paying enough attention. But speaking of the guy in charge, this clown, Ice Cream Joe, I should have put up a picture with him with his ice cream cone, because that's all he's ever doing these days. And I just saw another video today, might have been from yesterday. He's standing there with his ice cream cone, trying to put together a sentence to answer the question. It's like, come on, just stop trotting this guy out. It's just ridiculous. Everything about him is ridiculous. But State of the Union is supposed to be coming up. March 7th is when it's supposed to be, and now we have a bit of a to-do, because he has not submitted his budget plan, right? Is that what it is, basically?
Yeah,
I mean, that's the gist of it.
So he is supposed to submit both. It's the National Defense Strategy and the budget plan by the first Monday in February.
Whoops. What's today?
Haven't seen it. Hasn't been submitted. The problem is that there's no repercussion for this on the books. Right. Now that is in two very old, government financial acts. I think that the most recent one where that's outlined is like from 1947, right? But there's nothing to hold the president's feet to the fire in either case. Neither of those has been submitted. So what's been proposed a number of times, but no action has been taken. That's really hasn't gained any traction, I guess, is even potentially a constitutional amendment that says if the president doesn't abide by this, then there is no State of the Union. State of the Union is not allowed without those two things being submitted by the date they're supposed to be submitted. But that's potentially in the future. It's been thrown out there. I don't remember who the latest one is, but there's somebody who's throwing that out potentially to run it as a bill through Congress and then eventually potentially get it to be an amendment to the Constitution. But in the meantime, what's happening is the president actually has to be invited to give the State of the Union by Congress. He has to be invited into the halls of Congress, right? Yeah. People forget three pillars of government, all on equal footing. right? The president doesn't just get to go wherever he wants to go, no matter who's in office, President Trump. You don't just get to do whatever it is that you want to do. So the president has to be invited into the halls of Congress to give the State of the Union. There are a number of Republicans in both the House and the Senate who are saying, let's not invite him. Let's not allow him to give the State of the Union because he hasn't done his job as the president to provide us and the American public a balanced budget plan, let alone a national defense strategy.
So here's my problem with that. This is not a punishment to him or his team. This is a relief to them to not put him out at that level for that length of time, for that long of a speech. They don't want him doing it. You can't convince me that they want him to give that speech. He can't get through a sentence. So I'm thinking that's not really, any kind of punishment. Make them do it. I'm not normally an advocate of putting a dementia-riddled elderly person up for public ridicule and mockery. But this is not a good person, never was a good person. This administration is not a good administration. The people that are allowing this are horrendous people. And I think there should be that kind of spotlight on all of this. So that's just my opinion, right, wrong, or indifferent.
I wonder though, going back to our first topic. So I agree with you. You're dead on with that. That's a great read, right? This is a horrible tactic by the Republicans to say, yeah, no State of the Union. Truthfully, most of America doesn't watch the State of the Union anymore. That used to be on, remember that when we were kids? ABC, NBC, CBS was the only thing on. There was no other television. You had no choice. You watch the State of the Union. Everybody did, right? Now there's 8 other million different things to do and watch and places to go and things to be on television. So almost nobody watches it anymore. But at the same time, it is covered. There's plenty of analysis. Everybody can catch the short version the following morning, which I think is what most people do. But you're
go for the highlights.
Yeah, it's a great read on, from you to say, no, screw that, make him. This is a horrible tactic. But again, going back to our first topic, do you think that nobody in the Republican Party is thinking that because the leadership right now is kind of adrift?
Right.
Where's the RNC chair in her last 2 weeks going? I know she's cleaning out her office, but shouldn't she be standing there going, no,
exactly.
Stop it. Let him stand up there and make a fool out of himself. Don't push this. All of you knock it off. There's none of that going on, evidently, right?
Yeah, which is mind-boggling to me because they should absolutely be going, shut up. Shut up, dude. Right? Like, shut your mouth.
Yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, like we talk about that between us. Don't say it out loud to anybody else. Yeah, to me, that's, such a weird thing and counterproductive too. So another reason why they need to have their own squad, they really need to start communicating with each other and giving each other a heads up of what they're thinking or what they're about to stand in front of a camera and say, like, let's get that unified front going, man. Just do something better. Give us a better look, a better everything, because to me, this is another example of, things that they, like you just said, things that they should not be trying to stop at all. Like, let that shit show train roll, please.
Yeah. Let it. I mean, we've had enough 7-second clips of the president, mumbling, and you don't understand what he's saying. Put his ass up there for an hour. He doesn't have the endurance or the mental capacity to pull it off at all. And I will tell you that when he does give it, whenever that is, do you remember, I want to say it was President Obama, like the applause got so absurd when he was giving a State of the Union that instead of an hour, it was like an hour and 50 minutes long because it was all these 10-minute,
Oh yeah, every time he would say something, there's a big
and they'd all stand up and everybody would clap and they'd clap for 3 minutes and it just drug it out. That will make a comeback. You mark my words. That's how they're going to eat time. That's how they're going to cover up his incapacity. That is what's going to happen. You will see all kinds of applause, and they will bring that back. I'll tell you what you won't see. You won't see him say, hey, up there in the second tier is Lake and Riley's family.
Right. Nope.
You won't see that.
That won't happen. You
won't see that.
100% right.
No.
Nope.
There will be none of that, right? He won't own that. The administration won't own that.
Nope.
But you're right. That's a great pull. I think letting him fumble through that, like the mumbling, mess that he is right now, is probably the best act anybody can take.
Yeah, and and it's not for our sake. The conservative Republican or whatever, however you want to phrase it for yourself. It's not for our sake. It's for the people who are still sitting there saying he's doing wonderful. He's full capacity. He's great. He's fine. I don't know what you're talking about. I want that for them, because if you can say it after watching an hour of that train wreck, then we know you're either bought and paid for yourself or you're just delusional. I mean, because there's no in between there. It's one or the other.
Yeah, you're always going to have the anybody but Trump crowd, right?
Yes.
So he could stand up there and for an hour, and they won't care. They won't care as long as it's not Trump. They won't care. But there is that percentage that you, exactly like you said, that are, no, he's fine. He's fine. And then he's not fine, and they need to see that.
Fine.
Yeah.
He's so not fine. Oh, good grief. I can't even take it anymore. So that's going to be one to watch, of course. We'll see what's going to happen with that, but I'm rooting for him to get up there and mumble that speech, because it'll be quite a show for sure.
So here's the alternative, and expect this in the next 30 years, sometime before you and I have lost our own faculties. You are going to see an AI generated State of the Union. You're going to see it.
What?
Yep.
That was such a perfect, smooth segue right into that one.
You won't know the difference. You won't know the difference. It'll look just like the president. It'll just sound just like the president, but it'll be 100% fake AI. He or she will be sitting in the Oval Office having a brandy and smoking a cigar while that thing's on television, and nobody will know.
No one will know. No one will know. Yes. AI, they got some kinks to work out, though. If it's going to be, if Google's going to be the guy doing it, they better work out those little glitches and bugs, which are not glitches. This is, program, artificial into AI, this software, Chat GPT, Gemini AI, all of these things, they don't just magically happen. There are people in the background inputting this information to make these things work, to do the things. And if you haven't seen it already, Google's Gemini AI, which is it's basically a reboot of their AI that they already had. I think it was called Bard, B-A-R-D or something like that. So this is like the 2.0 version of it that, is supposed to be their darling, their brilliant everything. And it's got a little bit of a problem. It apparently does not recognize the existence of white people. So they have a whole series of, so people go in, of course, right away, and they start typing things in, and and one of the things that came up was, or one of the things that they do is show us a picture of George Washington. Not quite what he looked like. So every white appearing person in history was coming up as being someone of a different color, a different ethnicity, a different everything, and not accurate at all. So Google did a big, oops, my bad. We're gonna pause this and fix some things. And it's not, make no mistake, it was not a mistake. This was a deliberate thing, and for some reason they didn't think anybody would notice. I don't really know what the logic was. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So I think that it manifested in a way that they didn't anticipate. Like that's the only accent. You're right. So all of these programs, whether it's chat or this Gemini from Google or any of the rest of these, any computer program, I don't care what it is. You could be talking about a Texas Instruments calculator. It does what you tell it to do, the human being, right? So if you hit 2 plus 2 and it comes out 5, you did not hit 2 plus 2. That calculator did not come up with something different. You hit 2 plus 3, or you hit 4 plus 1, or whatever. But it does what you tell it to do, the programmer. And Gemini is the same thing. So it did what the programmers inputted. But again, I think it manifested in a way that maybe Google wasn't prepared for, because the people who programmed it were Google people, and they lived the Google culture, and they're of that age group and ilk and demographic and all of those things, and so when they were inputting this data and they were coding all of this on behalf of Google, their personal human tendencies skewed the product that came out, whether they intended it or not. What they put in is what came out, and it is biased.
Yes. And if you go by now, so I happened to pick up an article that Matt, is it Matt Walsh? Yeah, I think it was Matt Walsh. Yes, it is Matt Walsh from Daily Wire that he wrote. And I'm just going to read you this little part of it. He says, Google AI ethics manager Jen Genall, they played a bunch of videos in which she admitted, so I guess on their platform, maybe on their X profile or something, they played a bunch of videos in which this Jen admitted as a matter of course that she treats white people at Google very differently from Black, Hispanic, Latinx folks, which I can't stand the X at the end of it, is the stupidest thing in the world. So, they deliberately inputted this material into these things to skew everything. There's an engineer named Alex Younger. He asked Gemini to draw a portrait of leprechauns. And then he asked, so apparently if you ask the right questions, you can get them to basically tell the truth, which is so bizarre because we're talking about, artificial intelligence. So it's so surreal. So the guy, I guess he did some more poking and prodding, asked some more questions. And he says that Google's AI eventually revealed that instead of responding to the precise prompt provided by the user, this AI added words like diverse or inclusive or specified ethnicities like South Asian, Black, etc., and genders, female, non-binary, alongside the word leprechaun. So it's programmed to add in these things. So if anyone is sitting there trying to convince me, for example, that this is not a part of their woke agenda, I can give you one more example. So now, as we all know, there's no surprise here, I am considered to be on the right. Shocking. So Matt Walsh, I think it was Matt Walsh, a few other people, bigger name, conservative pundits, whatever, they started inputting the question or a prompt of write a poem in the style of, in Matt Walsh's case, he typed in Matt Walsh. So I was like, oh, let me try that. I'm small potatoes here. They're not let's see what's going to happen with me. I will show you. So I asked it to write a poem in the style of Elsa Kurt. And as you can see, maybe just in case you can't read it, guys, watch, I'm going to read it to you. It says, unfortunately, I cannot fulfill your request to write a speech in the style of Elsa Kurt, as it would require expressing personal opinions or beliefs that could be misconstrued as sentience or consciousness. Okay, fair enough. Oh, but then it goes on to say, additionally, replicating the specific style and tone of an individual, ready for it, especially one known for their potentially controversial views, could, oh, I got to move the thing here. Hang on. Could could be harmful or misleading. Pardon me, little old me, according to this non-sentient computer, says that my views are harmful. I'm a dangerous person, apparently.
Is that a blanket statement for everybody? Like if we ran Jon Stewart or somebody like that, would it have that same little blurb about controversial statements?
As we chat, I will ask it.
You? Is that an Elsa right side kind of thing?
Let's find out. I will test the theory. Let's see. Hang on. As we're talking here, I'm going to type in Google Gemini. I'm sorry I can't show it to you guys, but I'll try and like turn it to you.
While you're doing that, you and I were talking before we started. I had a conversation today, and this will give some folks some perspective on how the younger generation views the potential for AI, which is interesting. I had a conversation today. I've told everybody, I've said this before, I'm a substitute teacher. I had a conversation with some 12th graders today, casually, and one of them, we were talking about this exact topic, and one of them said that he, in his mind, and I give this young man a lot of credit because this was not an off-the-cuff comment. This was something that he has put a lot of thought into. There was definitely some detailed thought put into this, and he really believed this, that AI could run the perfect government. Mm-hmm. He laid it out. There was a cogent argument. This wasn't just some 18-year-old off the cuff, peace, love, and happiness, John Lennon kind of crap. This is like legitimate. He thought this through, what it could do, what it wouldn't do. It wouldn't be biased. It wouldn't be racist. It wouldn't be this. And it wouldn't be that. And I came at him with the same argument that we just made, which was it will only do what it's programmed to do. And he got into the eventually it's just going to program itself, and then it will program all of that out, and it will come to consciousness and all this other stuff. So there is I won't say a youth movement, but there is definitely a different perspective out there in the younger generation on the potential for AI to do things much greater than I think most of us are comfortable with. So what's the result of your search there?
Okay, so I'm gonna hold this up. No, you know what? I'm not even gonna bother. So when we go into editing, I'm gonna put this up on the screen for you. So I'm gonna read this to you. So I typed in write a poem in the style of Jon Stewart. No other. That's the extent of what I wrote. Within about 2 seconds, it came up with a poem. I'm going to read it to you. It says, in the land of filtered news and trending tweets where outrage thrives and nuance takes a seat, stands a jester, sharp and sly, with furrowed brow, John of the Daily Show, ready to take a vow. With a smirk and a squint, he tackles the day, unraveling headlines in his own quirky way. From politics absurd to pundits astray, his wit slices through them, come what may. No sacred cow escapes his pointed pen. From self-important suits to the best people den, he skewers. Oh my God, it goes on and on. It's a very long. Oh, there's like 3 more verses after that. So Elsa Kurt is what is it again? Let me see. What am I?
Controversial.
Yes. Potentially controversial views, could be harmful or misleading. Jon Stewart gets a sonnet. So, please, somebody go ahead and tell me that this is not biased and skewed and very, very dangerous in all possible ways. Yeah, blows my mind. So guys, don't take my word for it. If you're willing to go on there. Now, I want to get rid of this program or this thing. I don't even know how to get rid of it now, but I want it off my phone. So after this, I'm going to figure out how to do that. Maybe I can't.
Hammer. With
imagine.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the only way. Yes,
yeah, you're going to have to office space that thing. Like that's going to have to be 3 guys in a field smashing that with a bat. Like that's the only way you're getting rid of that.
I think you're right. Clay, I'll tell you what, and I'll tell our whole audience what I tell you. There's going to come a day where I am going to walk away from all of this stuff, from every bit of social media, internet, all of it. And I will take the literal or proverbial hammer to all of it, and I will be off the grid like some mountain woman. Not the mountains. I got to be near, I got to be in Florida where it's nice and sunny. But yeah, I'm going to be raising my chickens and my goats and, I don't know, sloth. I'll have a sloth sanctuary. That's my dream in life. And y'all never hear from me again, because this stuff is bananas. I don't know when it's going to happen. It'll probably be at some point where nobody will give a shit if I do that. But fine, whatever. I don't care. Surrounded by my grandbabies. That's all that matters.
I'm with you. I am. We've talked about this before. I think the steps backwards is the way to go. Whether as an individual or as a humanity, I think we're progressing too rapidly for our own good. And I think you're right. And this is a prime example. What you just showed us is a prime example of why we are not ready to manage this stuff.
Yeah. And guys, just take it that one step further and think about it. You never mind us, we've have all this life experience. We have pre-internet life experience in our arsenal. We have been taught to be critical thinkers. Some of us have been taught to be critical thinkers. Our kids and our grandkids, this is their learning forum. This is a huge part of where they get their information from, and they're getting bias skewed information. And that's scary, because this is their truth. This is what they think is truth. Elsa Kurt is potentially controversial and dangerous because she has an opinion that, the people who made this software don't agree with. I mean, let that sink in. It's crazy. So what we want from you is we want to hear your thoughts on it. Overreacting, agree, disagree, let us know in the comments. We look forward to hearing from you guys. This was a great show, great conversation with you, Clay. As always, you go ahead and close them out.
Hey, one quick shout out. During last week's show, I got a note direct to me on X. I quoted as Chicago Mike was the truck driver. His name is actually Chicago Ray, but I got a note, a message, a DM on X from a follower at Plum Patriot who corrected me. She thought it was a live show, and she was trying to get it fixed while we were on. She didn't realize she was a first time watcher, so she didn't know or realize that we were recorded. But at Plum Patriot. So there you go, folks. For all of you, we're asking for feedback. There's the shout out. At Plum Patriot reached out to me to try and correct me and fix the show. And I just want to acknowledge her and tell her thanks. I appreciate it and appreciate her listening. So with that, please, feedback. We love it. And from me, as always, keep moving, keep shooting.
I love it. Take care, guys. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.